Up next, we have Sophie Spurr from Brooksville.
My secret is an open secret. I thought he was a Viking god. He was tall, blonde, and gorgeous, but terribly shy. We were high school juniors at Putney School, a progressive co-ed boarding school in Vermont. That was Peter. Peter Chase was born the middle of 7 children in a family that cherished music, boats, and the arts. I first visited his family's beloved Horseshoe Cove on Cape Rozier when I was a teenager. I was from the Cleveland, Ohio suburbs, so this was magical. I fell in love with the place and with his family. We were only teenagers, but we were madly in love and determined to find a way to support ourselves in Brooksville. We navigated through the college years. I studied theater and literature at Sarah Lawrence College in Bronxville, New York. He spent a year in Philadelphia at art school, then came to Maine to fix up an old lobster boat for scalloping. Then we both went to Ireland, where I studied at Trinity College in Dublin. Pete worked at a boatyard outside of Dublin until one day he saw a Galway hooker. An open, traditional Irish sailing boat. It had brown, hand-sewn sails and an hourglass-shaped hull. He bought her with a chunk of money from his grandfather, and we began the journey to bring her back to Maine. Pete's love for boat building with hand tools grew while he worked with a Gaelic-speaking boat builder. Then one day, he was standing in line at an American Express office in London. He learned from 2 people ahead of him in line about a boat building school in Lubec, Maine. The school was delighted to have an applicant from Ireland, so he was immediately accepted. The hooker wasn't seaworthy for a transatlantic crossing, at least not for me or my mother. So we sailed our boat around Ireland to Manchester, England. From there, she was shipped to Halifax, Nova Scotia. We married in 1974. We moved back to Maine after I attended law school and we had 2 fabulous daughters. We had amazing years of raising pigs, horse shows, pony carts and sleigh rides, ice skating, skiing, pond hockey, camping trips, soccer games, music lessons, and messing about in boats on Penobscot Bay. We had the best dance parties where the bookshelves would sway from the stomping feet. Peter was a gifted boat designer. He designed an early sea kayak and went on to work for many years at Brooklyn Boatyard, where he was first mentored and then became a mentor. Now we have 4 grandchildren who are my best pals. Then, at age 60, we weren't old yet. Pete began to forget words for objects. He made a doctor's appointment because, as he put it, something was wrong with my brain. He was diagnosed with FTD, frontal temporal dementia, a progressive deterioration of the brain, for which there is no treatment or cure. We were devastated. His form of dementia was unusual and even more painful for him because he was acutely aware of his decline. I watched the man I adored slowly drift away. He still looked like my gorgeous Viking husband, but he was a shell of the man he used to be. Pete agonized over the reality that he could no longer connect emotionally to me or his beloved daughters. Only his dogs didn't require much of him. He was still driving and I couldn't get him to stop. But mostly he only drove to Eggemoggin Country Store in Sedgwick to buy Patty's Irish Whiskey, the brand he loved, or to the nursing home to visit his mother. He was still building boats in his shop. Some of our friends questioned his safety working with power tools, but building one more boat is what gave him a sense of purpose. My brother commissioned his last boat, a Cape Rosier Wherry, a boat he designed. After his death, he named it Final Call. In 2014, I organized a big 40th anniversary party for us because I knew we weren't going to make it to our 50th. The day after the party, he told me that he planned to take his own life when he could no longer build boats. I was frantic and couldn't stop sobbing. He told me that he didn't want to spend years sitting, unable to speak, read, or understand what others were saying. Already he couldn't read or watch television. He told me that he had bought special bullets for his gun. I couldn't stand the idea. I protested. I got him to agree to use pills and to let me and our daughters be with him so that he wouldn't be alone. The next year, 2015, was Pete's 65th birthday, which was on March 20th, the first day of spring. Unlike many Mainers who detest mud season, he relished the first buds of spring peeping through the mud. But as his birthday approached, he told us that if he didn't take his life before that date, he might lose his courage. A few days before his birthday, he called me as I was driving back from skiing at Sugarloaf to tell me that he was going to take the pills that day. I was afraid to go home. I called my good friend who was a nurse for support, but my daughters told me I had to be as brave as he was. I began an out-of-body experience, watching myself from the outside and evaluating my emotions. That day, he called both our daughters on their cell phones on the ski slopes to say goodbye. He was standing at the kitchen window when he saw my car pull up the driveway, and that's when he gulped down the many pills he had stockpiled, a mixture of oxycodone and sleeping pills. After that, we had a few minutes together for a lucid goodbye. We told each other how grateful we were for the rich life we had shared together, and we toasted ourselves with a glass of Patty's Irish Whiskey. Then began the longest night of my life. It took a long time for the pills to work. His body was so strong and healthy. Only his brain had holes in it. We sat with him. We lay next to him on the floor. He finally died the next morning, surrounded by family. It was his last gift to us. I wasn't worried about any legal ramifications for me, but Peter was, which is why he took the pills before I entered the house. I worked as a lawyer at the Hancock County Courthouse for 40 years, and many there were aware of the journey we were on. Maine's Death with Dignity law wasn't passed until 2019. I still miss him in so many different moments, at gatherings of friends and family, and gazing at his many half models on our walls. My only regret is that I wish on long car rides I had always agreed with him that instead of taking the fastest route, we should take the long scenic way home.